Hello and welcome to this week's Bar on Air segment. My name is Jane Nguyen, and in honor of Women's History Month, we're spotlighting two remarkable Vietnamese American women who are making significant contributions to our community through their leadership and dedication.
My name is Cassie. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Han Yi Chung, Senior Manager of the Vietnamese American Service Center and President of the Vietnamese American Professional Women's Association of Silicon Valley, and Hong Ha Huang, Leadership Teacher at Andrew Hill High School and a Franklin McKinley School Board member. We're excited to learn about your journeys and the impact you all are making. Let's start with brief introductions. Han Yi, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Thank you, Cassie. Thank you, Jay. And thank you so much, Vietnamese American Roundtable, for hosting me. I'm so thrilled and privileged to be here sharing the panel and spotlight with Home. My name is Hen Nhi. I currently serve as the Senior Manager of the Vietnamese American Service Center. Throughout this recording, I'll call it the VASC for short, but it's part of the County of Santa Clara. And I've been working with the County of Santa Clara now for 13 years. 12 of it as an attorney, as a prosecutor for the county, and in the last year as the senior manager of the VASC. Outside of my work capacity, I also lead a sort of volunteer nonprofit called the Vietnamese American Professional Women's Group of Silicon Valley, VAPW for short. And so both amazing organizations, which I'll dive into, I'm sure, later on in the conversation. And a bit more about me. Parents are both refugees. I was born and raised in Orange County, one of four kids. And I'm a mom of three amazing girls. So that's my intro. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Han. We're very, very excited to hear about all of your leadership experience and all of the different, I guess, the impact that you've left on the Vietnamese American community, specifically in San Jose. But Hom Ha, would you please introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Cassie, and thank you, Bar, for having me here tonight. My name is Hong Ha Huang. I'm a Vietnamese American educator, community advocate, and school board trustee. My parents left Vietnam as refugees, and they really instilled in me the value of hard work, education, and giving back to the community. After becoming a first-generation college graduate, I decided to dedicate my life to helping others through education. Um, as you mentioned a little bit before, I'm currently a teacher at Andrew Hill High School, where I'm also the activities director, and really passionate about making sure that all students, especially those from diverse backgrounds, have the resources and support they need to succeed. And I'm deeply committed to creating equitable opportunities for everyone in our community. And I'm excited to be here today and share more about my work and my vision for the future.
I think it's really interesting that you both are children of refugees. So I think you guys will end up finding out that you have a lot in common, especially as you both contribute to the community in some kind of fashion. So thank you both for joining us today and for giving us your time. Hanyi, I'd like to start off with you. Could you share your personal and professional journey leading up to your role right now at the Vietnamese American Service Center? And what initially drew you to this work? How does your Vietnamese American identity inform your approach to community service?
So as I mentioned, my parents are both refugees, and they were able to resettle in Orange County in an enclave that's very similar to East San Jose in the early 80s. And they had us, so me and my siblings. And so in the neighborhood where we grew up, in the apartment complex where we grew up, lots of challenges, a lot of safety issues, just a lot of the typical sort of concerns that come with growing up in a low income community. They came over here with not very much, and they worked in the garment industry and later on in the nail salon sort of business. But what I saw sort of growing up in that setting was, because it felt like we were living on the fringes of society, and they were so afraid to reach out for help to law enforcement if they saw something happening outside of our doors. And yet they were living in fear, right? And we would hear about, home break-ins, car break-ins, but we would never pick up the phone to call the police. So that really left an impression on me. This idea of like these communities, my community, living what we felt like was on the fringe of society. And it was so hard to access these services. And so for me, a big motivation has to bridge that gap between immigrant communities, vulnerable communities, and our systems, our government systems, right? And I went towards the field that felt the most out of reach, which at the time for me was the law and safety, right? And so I've always been interested in public service. And so that's where I've dedicated my life. And a passion for me is to sort of bridge that gap between our most complicated out of reach systems. So for a long time for me, that was criminal justice, advocating for victims and our communities, right? And then I did that for 12 years. And what I then realized, and encouraged me to move on from that career was that I wanted to work with our communities and uplift them beyond just the limited scope of the criminal justice system, right? Because our communities, face a lot of issues before they interact with our system. And there's a lot of healing that needs to be done even after that. And so I think that's why I was motivated to move beyond my role as an attorney, as a prosecutor, to my current role at the VAS, where I'm able to, at the VAS, connect our community with health services, behavioral health services, public assistance, and partner with so many amazing community organizations to bring a lot of great services to our community and connect with so many great schools. And that's how I met Home originally when her students came and performed at our Lunar New Year event. And so just to have the opportunity to connect with so many stakeholders that work to uplift our community, that's what I'm doing in my current capacity, and it's been a great joy.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable about your like background and upbringing. And I think your experiences within like criminal justice and public service are so empowering. And also your transition into your current role at the VASC is like so remarkable. And before I like became an intern at VAR, I wasn't super familiar with the VASC space and I guess all the different events and programs that you guys offer to like the broader Vietnamese community from like youth to elders. But as a VAR intern, I've been able to like really explore the VASC and I find myself but I haven't really been to a lot of the recent basket events since it hasn't really been in my capacity, but I've still been able to obviously observe the impact that the basket has left. So it's very cool to be able to like speak to you today. But as for you, Homha, I know you wear multiple hats as both an educator and also a school board member. Could you talk about your path to these roles and what exactly motivated you to pursue leadership in education? Like, how do you think that your Vietnamese identity has influenced your teaching philosophy and your approach to leadership?
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for the question. My journey into education and leadership began at my own experience as a first generation Vietnamese student. Growing up, I sort of saw firsthand how much my parents sacrificed to give me the opportunities to succeed. They fled Vietnam as refugees, believing in a better future for their children, and they instilled in me the importance of education and hard work. Initially, I was on the path to medical school, but when I saw the disparity in educational opportunities, I realized that changing a child's future starts with access to a quality education. That realization sort of shifted my focus. I became passionate about being a part of the solution, especially for underrepresented communities like my own. In teaching, I strive to create an inclusive and welcoming environment that acknowledges students' unique cultural backgrounds while helping them develop critical thinking, creativity, and leadership skills. My Vietnamese heritage shaped my approach in that I understand the challenges that immigrant students face, balancing multiple identities, navigating language barriers, and adjusting to new cultural norms. This gives me I believe, some empathy and drives me to be an advocate for those who are often overlooked. In leadership, I'm committed to ensuring that every student, no matter where they come from, have the support and resources they need to succeed. My cultural background informs my values, such as community, resilience, empathy. And I believe these values are really important for creating educational systems that truly serve all students. And I like to think I lead with the belief that education is a powerful tool for breaking the cycles of inequity. And I want to be a role model who shows students that no matter your background, you can achieve your dreams.
Thank you so much for your response. So both of you both work in positions that directly impact our community. And I would love to build upon what Jay mentioned earlier about the VASC. I didn't know too much about the VASC before working with VAR, but I do want to enter the medical field as well. So I've been learning a lot about the specific disparities there are in the Vietnamese American community and how I can work towards improving that, especially as I am in AP research right now, and my whole research project at school is revolving around Vietnamese American mental health. So I've been using a lot of resources at the VASC to hopefully learn a little bit more about that. And then with you, Homha, I also have some experiences with leadership. So I know that it's very fundamental at an early age to work with other people and kind of build this kind of camaraderie. for whatever community you're a part of, whether that's Vietnamese American, whether that's in school. So, as Vietnamese American women, have you encountered any unique challenges or opportunities in your leadership roles? And how have you navigated these experiences specifically? And we can start with Hom Ha.
Perfect. Thank you for the question. Absolutely. Growing up, I felt like there was a pressure to pursue traditional careers like medicine, engineering, law, which really didn't align with my passion for education. And that sort of created internal conflict. But I think I ultimately realized that my path could be just as impactful. In leadership, I've often been one of the few Vietnamese American women in the room, and that can feel often isolating. And I had to work harder to prove myself. But it was also given me the opportunity to break down barriers for others who might feel underrepresented. I really learned to embrace my background. I think my background allows me to have this dual perspective of combining Western and Eastern problem solving approaches to lead with empathy and cultural sensitivity. And it's also about mentoring the next generation. In my roles, I want young people to see someone who looks like themselves in leadership roles. My Vietnamese American identity is a huge part of how I lead, and it allows me to connect with families, students, advocate for policies that truly matter to my community, and approach challenges with resilience. It's about being seen, heard, and creating spaces for everyone to thrive.
And we can hear from you, Hanyi.
A lot of what Helm has said, I really resonate with. But I think sort of growing up, the a lot of the sayings I remember was that like, you shouldn't talk back. You should then go home by home. So we don't like speak back. We don't offer our alternative perspectives. And I remember for me as a Vietnamese girl, because I acknowledge there are a lot of gender norms, in Vietnamese culture, right? We're the caretakers. And I remember being told when I was exploring different careers, don't do that because it's too hard, it's too stressful, right? And so I think there's perceptions as to what women, Vietnamese girls, can handle versus, you know, um, uh, our male counterparts, right? And so I really chafed against that. And so I remember when I was talking about becoming a prosecutor and going into law enforcement, my parents were really worried, because I think from their concern, it was similar to the idea of not picking up the phone and don't call the cops. But now I'm like, I'm in that space. And so they're like, we're so concerned for your safety and so forth, right? And so there was that piece of it, like encouraging my family and the community to think a little bit differently about what we can do. And so it's the challenges of being seen as quiet, not tough. And then I had to really prove them wrong, even as I was in the courtroom, not even my family, but like others' perceptions of Asian American women. That because Vietnamese women are so resilient, we're like standing on I don't know, the backs of so many resilient women, my mom, my aunties and my grandparents and so many other women as well, right? Who kind of held down the fort at home, right? And sort of built a home for us here. So proving a lot of folks wrong in that respect. And then in terms of opportunities, right? Being a Vietnamese American woman, lawyer, and then now sort of leading the VAS, and then also my work with the APW. I love, building all these different parts of my identity, and I encourage youth to do the same. You don't have to be just one, two, or three things. You could be anything that you want. And I think that just gives us so much flexibility and our youth and all of us so much flexibility to leverage different parts of our identity in different spaces, depending on where we are, right? So when I'm working with the Viet community, I leverage my background, right? So they can see like, hey, I can connect with them. I get where you're coming from. But when I have to work with systems, it's like, all right, well, let me leverage my background as a lawyer. I've worked in these spaces as a leader. So they're like, okay, well, you can navigate that space. So I think that's the beautiful thing about building as many of these parts of your identity as you want. And you can really leverage it and emphasize it depending on what space or policy or change that you're trying to advocate for. So that's what I would really encourage folks to do.
And I think it's great that the both of you have like challenged your family's perceptions of what you're capable of as a Vietnamese woman. And I'm so certain that that impact has also been felt by like the students, the parents, and the elders, the two of you often interact with in like your leadership positions in San Jose's Vietnamese space. And I think that your commitments to cultural sensitivity and authenticity, sorry, are so inspiring. Um, but moving towards the next question, as we celebrate Women's History Month, could you each share a Vietnamese or Vietnamese American woman who has personally inspired you in your professional journey? And either of you can start first.
I'd have heard a home, perhaps.
Yeah, the woman that has inspired me the most is probably my mom. Her unwavering love and care for our family, combined with her tirelessness work to support us, are qualities I really, really admire. But it wasn't just about us. She was always involved in the community, offering to help and care for those in need. Um, Watching her show up for others, no matter what the circumstances, taught me the true meaning of community and service. She also taught me the importance of never forgetting where we came from and the values of hard work and supporting our family. My mom encouraged me to explore the intersectionality of being both Vietnamese and American, which led me to study Vietnamese performing arts growing up and gaining a deeper understanding of our history. Her example shaped my belief in the power of compassion and community, and it continues to guide my leadership, help me stay connected with our roots while striving to make a meaningful impact. So I would say my mom.
Okay, I have a very exact same answer. My mom as well. Um, so resilient, right? I mean, fleeing Vietnam in her early 20s when she was pregnant with my older brother, pregnant and like fleeing by boat. So we know how risky that journey is. And so I think amazingly resilient, starting her life here, working in the garment industry, reinventing herself to like then become a manicurist because she wasn't able to support our family with just that type of work, you know, sewing as a seamstress. So being willing to do just these remarkably, unimaginably hard things for her family, right? So I think our moms are amazing. My mom is amazing. And I'll give you a very specific and recent example as to how she's inspired me. Just because sort of in my capacity previously as a DA working with the Vietnamese community and now at the VAS, we have to engage with our community a lot in Vietnamese. We speak Vietnamese, we're presenting in Vietnamese, reading and writing. And I never went to Vietnamese school here. So I never formally learned how to do so. I just learned at home, right? How to speak. But then I thought to myself, as I was trying to tackle this, like my mom had to do the same thing. She grew up learning Vietnamese, came here in her 20s. And then when she switched careers to become a manicurist, she had to study the pass that exam in English, right? These science terms, I remember sitting there in middle school, poring over the material with her in English. So she was learning this stuff, you know, to pass the exam in English. And I was like, you know what? If she can do that and she's raising kids and she's doing this like at this point in her life, I can certainly do it too in Vietnamese, right? And so I think that's one vivid, sort of very recent example in the last few years as I've been trying to sort of improve my Vietnamese to engage with our community that she's really been inspiring for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you both when you're describing this resilience that a lot of Vietnamese moms have. I often see it in my own mom as well. She was the first person in my family to get a college degree, and she's like the person with the highest paying like job right now in my family as well. And so I look up to her a lot. And with Hom Ha, you describing how your mom was like very involved in the community. That's the same with my mom as well. So I always looked up to her as she was like interacting with a lot of community members, and so many people also look up to her, not just in my own family. So every day I'm inspired to like work towards similar goals, I suppose. So for both of you, what do you see as the most pressing needs or challenges facing Vietnamese American women in our community today as we look towards the future? And how are you addressing these through your work? And anyone can answer.
I'll quickly jump in, perhaps. And so I think one challenge I see sort of in our generation, I maybe perhaps that I'm facing it right now is like, how do we balance these robust professional careers that we have, the impact that we want to have on our community, right? We want to be community leaders. We want to serve our community. We want to have professional careers. And at the same time, show up for our family as caregivers for our aging parents, as mothers for young kids, because it's a lot, right? And so I think that's sort of one piece that I see that's a challenge. And in terms of how, I'm addressing it, perhaps just by example that, we're trying to do it all, sometimes messily, but asking for grace from folks, right? As I'm trying to balance the work piece, the leadership piece, and also raising my family and the family piece, right? And then I think letting young folks know and hopefully letting my team know that we have grace to balance sort of the personal piece, the family piece with the work piece, because it's all sort of related, right? To kind of show up well for the community, professionally to serve the community, we have to be able to take care of ourselves and our family, right? So I think that's one piece that's I've been thinking about that's kind of relevant to me.
Thank you. And I want to echo a lot of that. A few other things that came to mind when you asked the question. Um, First, balancing traditional cultural values with modern pressures in life in America can create some internal conflict. Another thing that comes to mind is potentially limiting access to education and career opportunities, especially in leadership positions. And then a third is some mental health struggles that are often stigmatized, and that leaves many women sort of silently carrying that burden. And I've seen that a lot in my family members and other women, Vietnamese women I'm close with. And in my work, I'm addressing these challenges mostly through the young people and the young women I'm working with, mentoring them to help them navigate their identity while pursuing their goals. I'm really advocating for greater representation in leadership opportunities in my capacities. And I also am working to break down the stigma around mental health, encouraging open conversations so women can seek the support that they need. And I think by doing so, I want to empower Vietnamese women to thrive both in their careers and in their personal lives without losing connection to their roots.
Thank you so much for like both of your guys' time today. Unfortunately, we have to cut it pretty short, but I really wanted to say quickly, Hanyi, I think what you said about like giving yourself and also others grace is so important. And I can't necessarily relate because, or like I guess from your viewpoint as like a mother and also all these other responsibilities that you juggle, but I feel like lately I've been trying to give myself and my family a lot more grace. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what you mentioned, Hamha, about like the stigmatization of mental health and navigating like the intersectionality of like your Western and Eastern like ideologies and the two like conflicting. And I feel like as I've gotten older and matured, and especially within the last year as like a high school senior, when I'm about to like go away from home, I think it's been really important to really understand what it means to extend like grace to myself and understanding to like the people around me. And I guess like opening myself up to new ways of thinking. So I think that the work that both of you guys do in your respective like leadership positions in the Vietnamese space here is so important and inspiring. And I'm really grateful that you guys joined us today because it's been a great like 30 minutes of being able to listen to you guys talk about your experiences. But that's basically all I had to say for this segment. And Cassie, if you want to add on anything before we end the segment.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that this was really meaningful for me as well. I am also leaving to college, and I feel like there are definitely a lot of expectations my family has for me, the same ones that my mom encountered and like all my ancestors had before. Not only as, who I am as a woman, but also how am I supposed to keep my family afloat? How am I supposed to honor kind of my legacy as well? So. I think I gained a lot of personal advice from this, and I really appreciated the time that we had together.
Okay, so to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for this special Women's History Month episode. And we hope that these conversations have inspired you to learn more about the contributions of some Vietnamese American women in our community. And this has been Bar on Air. So until next time.